Well, after 6 weeks away, the first bar to open in Idaho is the Sports Bar. Dave, it is good to see your wonderful face and hear your wonderful voice once again. It's been a while, my man.
Thank you. Oh wait, that's not how my voice actually sounds. No, it's good to be back, man. And also, I realize we're doing this via Zoom, so if people watched it, they can see. Like, I have like old Idaho Press Club awards up here.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to add another one.
Oh yeah, we do.
2 years in a row. Best sports talk show, baby.
What do we really care about? I would say, yeah. We got a little recognition for the second year in a row for our podcast, which is cool. Makes us feel good about it, I would say.
Yeah. People like us, apparently. At least one person that voted did.
Exactly. All it takes is one team to fall in love with you. That's what they say about the NFL.
Oh, that's good.
We're going to talk a lot about that. Why Curtis Weaver slipped. The fit of Curtis going down to South Beach. Ezra's a Viking. David Moe is a Viking. John Hightower's an Eagle. City of Brotherly Love. So it's all good. But first off, we just want to say that it really does feel good to be back. And we, even though we don't get to interact like live with our listeners, we usually get to do it over social media once the show is over. So it certainly feels good to be back and doing the podcast again, Dave.
Well, it's funny because when we did it, the last one, we did it on a Wednesday, and I think by the time it was out, it was obsolete because news changed so fast. And I think for us, what we wanted to do was just kind of, be timely, but also didn't want to be dated. Mm-hmm. So we kind of wanted things to sort out a little bit. And then also in the interim, your daughter was born.
Yeah, and I'm going to say I'm drinking coffee out of a Yankees cup today. That just kind of shows you the dishes are piling up a little bit. What's that?
That's their home away from home, Target Field.
Okay. Oh yeah, there you go. They hit really well at Target Field. But
I hate you.
My wife's a Yankees fan. My wife's a huge Yankees fan. So that's the cup that I got stuck with today. It is what it is. Being a dad is cool. You don't sleep a lot. Most of the time, you don't really care. You love it when the sun comes up because it helps you stay awake a little bit better. The tough time is when it's like 2 or 3 a.m. and she just wants to stay up for an hour and a half or 2 hours or 3 hours or who knows how long and just hang out and watch Netflix. So
nice.
Yeah, but she's awesome, Dave. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been cool. Memorable.
I haven't got to meet her yet, and probably not many people have because she was born during a weird time. Hey, if nothing else, she's gonna have a hell of a story too.
Hell of a story. Hell of a story. Some of the things out there, Dave, now that you've actually kind of led me down this road, at least currently want to dismiss, when we were going to the hospital to have, my wife was in labor, there are these rumors like the dad or what's called the emotional support person wouldn't be allowed in the room. But there is one emotional support person allowed in the room. So I was able to be there, which was amazing. I would have been devastated had I not been allowed to be there. But one thing I just want to dispel right now, if you are kind of going through this, your significant other is allowed to have, one emotional support person. So, and outside of that, we went to St. Al's in all honesty, and everything was pretty cool, pretty smooth. The nurses were great. Everybody had masks on, but me and my wife.
Yeah.
But they kept it as normal as humanly possible, and it really didn't feel too different, I would say. So they did a good job.
I thought the punchline was going to be that her emotional support person was her sister.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't there. Yeah, I was her mom.
Right. Yeah. I was in the hallway, but.
The first couple nights, I feel like I needed emotional support person. Oh my goodness, there really wasn't a whole lot of sleep going on, and I can definitely see why people take 2 weeks off of work. I worked at a great company, they allowed me to do that, and I kind of was one of those things. It was like, no, I'll be good after a couple days. A week went by like that because you don't.
Yeah.
Sleep. And it was something that I needed to do. But
you probably got to sit with her and watch most of the draft, though, right? I mean, that's probably, you talk about sitting around and hanging out. I mean, you probably got to do a good amount of that.
Yeah, we did. The workflow is so different right now because
it is.
I mean, I'm in my home office, if you will, and we're trying to edit video and capture video and do all this in a way that we usually don't. So a few weeks into it, it's getting better. I think that we're understanding the workflow, how to make this effective and work for everybody. And it's going okay. But yeah, the NFL draft, it is now come and gone. And I mean, I was glued to it for the most part. I think like kind of once it kind of got into the afternoon on Saturday after Hightower and Curtis Weaver were picked, I kind of lingered off a little bit just because I had other duties, literally, that were calling. But yeah, it was a good draft. Dave, I thought like from the virtual aspect of it, everybody like was like speculating, oh, it's going to go terrible. Thought it went pretty good.
Yeah. There weren't very many hitches. There was the only times you really noticed it, I guess, was when like there was delayed reactions, or you'd see guys on their phones where before it would kind of like tip you off, and you see them like on the phone with the team, and they would just play that later. But other than that, it went off pretty well without a hitch. I mean, I kind of made fun of it because I thought it was corny, but like when the fans were behind Goodell, like it's just like
pointed out that the Chargers, they couldn't even like fill all the boxes. For the Chargers, so there was like 10 fans. And the Chargers just had like 4 logos in the boxes and only like 6 fans.
Yeah. There were some weird ones. Like Guy Fieri was in the Raiders one.
Okay, that really was him though.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, all right. I saw the tweet.
Everybody, he went to UNLV and stuff, and
everybody directs us at Michael Katz, and I thought that it was just like I couldn't really see him. It was grainy. Thought it was a joke, but apparently it was real.
Like Eric Stonestreet from Modern Family, like dressed as Andy Reid. He was in one of them. Okay. I swear, like also for the Raiders, there was, I don't know which one, but some old timer player that was God, I don't want to get it wrong. Someone that's not alive, but like Jim Plunkett or someone like that.
Okay.
And they didn't even mention it. And so it was like, but other than that, I thought it went really well. And I always loved the NFL draft. That was the thing I used to like back when it was like one day or two, I should say. I would wake up and want to spend all day watching it. Right. When I was a kid,
totally.
For some reason, that was also always a day though that like it'd be in the spring. So my dad would be like, "Oh, perfect, you're up. Let's go do yard work." And I'd be like, "No, I need to see if Warren Sapp goes to the Vikings." But
spoiler: he doesn't go to the Vikings.
I still this day can't believe they didn't take him. But but no, I think it went really well. I think it did, and like of course they got Boku ratings because everyone was watching it, and but for good reason. Like that was a pretty big task they had to take on, and did it pretty well.
I thought one of the more entertaining parts of it was just kind of watching Roger Goodell's conditions almost deteriorate.
Yes.
Right? Like he was initially thought like, I'm going to stand up. By the way, there had to have been somebody there too with him. I'm assuming multiple people because this camera had movement on it.
Yeah, I think there were.
Yeah, but as each round went by, it was like he put on a more comfortable layer of clothing, and eventually he moved over to his couch, and eventually he was wearing his big leather chair. Eventually he's wearing like a T-shirt.
Yeah.
I mean, there's kind of all of us, I guess. Like as the draft went on, you just slowly saw his conditions start to deteriorate a little bit, making him probably a little more human to most.
A little more human, yeah. Because I mean we're all like that. Because by the end, even I was like that. Like still thinking Ezra Cleveland might go in late first. Yeah. I was like, ooh, if he does, my synapses aren't going to be firing at 100% if he did.
Well, and that was like so what you would predict would happen because nothing is in terms of our working conditions, and I'm assuming yours too. Nothing is as streamlined as normal. So right when like we hit the 25th pick, Dave. In all honesty, if I'm being honest with you.
You were hoping he did get picked?
I was like, at each pick that went by, I was like growing. There was more fear like growing in my heart and in my head. Because I was like, how am I going to spin this and turn it around? Normally, it would be no problem.
Sure.
Start to get to 9:45, 10 o'clock. But it is really hard to spin stuff around as quickly as we normally do, given the current conditions. And so, and I was really worried. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings were a team that Ezra Cleveland was heavily connected to. I mean, like when I talked to him prior to the draft, he gave me 3 teams to watch, and the Minnesota Vikings were one of them. And when they traded back to 31, you're like, holy crap, they're going to get Ezra at the back end of the first round, and this is just going to be a nightmare turnaround.
That's happened to me twice.
Oh, yeah?
On Friday nights, both. Alexander Madison.
Last year.
And before that, Reese Odhiambo.
Reese Odhiambo, yes.
And so,
Reese was the final pick too, wasn't he?
I think he was within 2 or 3 of the last picks.
One of the final, yeah. And
so like, and so I had like stories all queued up, and like, to be frank, for both of them, I was thinking, oh, they'll get drafted Saturday.
Yeah.
And like, we had it ready to go, and I just remember I had filed one about Odhiambo, and Prater just was like texting me to said, "Oh no," and I was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh God, there you."
Well, and here's the deal: we talk about Curtis sliding a little bit in this draft, or a lot of it. Reese was one of those guys that, I mean, like, I'm not calling it a huge surprise that he went when he went, but like there weren't a ton of like, oh, he's going in the 3rd round. Like a lot of people were thinking he was going to be that early day 3, but still a day 3 draft pick. And so it was a little bit of a surprise too. Not a huge surprise, it's a little bit of a surprise.
Yep, exactly.
Just to recap it really quick, Dave. So Ezra Cleveland goes 58th overall in the 2nd round of the Minnesota Vikings. Curtis Weaver goes in the 5th round, 164th overall to the Miami Dolphins. And then John Hightower, just 4 picks later, quick turnaround, which was very convenient in these circumstances, goes 168th overall to the Philadelphia Eagles. Dave, I will let you pick where you want to start.
Let's just start from the top, just because I with Ezra and you know, I think if we were going into the draft where I thought he would be picked, I thought he would go late in the 1st round because tackle is a premium position. But my thought was always, if someone can get him in the 2nd, they'll feel really good about it. You know, because obviously it'll be a need if you're drafting the 2nd round, but it would be a luxury if you can get someone like that in the 2nd round with that upside. Maybe someone you'd prefer to start right away, probably will, but you don't have to. You're not putting that much pressure on him. And then I thought, as he started started going again, you kind of were looking at teams that based on need, you're like, oh wow, they literally, until Minnesota comes up again, these teams might not need a tackle. And anything about fit and like how Minnesota runs it, Gary Kubiak's there, right? And if you remember the Denver Broncos, again, my John Elway poster here, remember the Broncos when they won the Super Bowl, it was a zone blocking scheme, right? Where guys, you had to have guys move around. They weren't always the biggest guys, but they had to be pretty athletic, pretty versatile. And Gary's in Minnesota now, and you think about what Ezra Cleveland fits in terms of he's not the biggest guy. He could probably get a little bigger, even a little stronger, but he's athletic. And so I thought the fit was great. I thought them getting him at 58, they'd already had 2 picks before him. I thought it was really good. And if you think with Minnesota, Riley Reif has struggled a bit, and if you ask any fans there, they dislike him greatly.
And he makes a ton of money, right?
Yeah. And so what they can do though, he's played guard before, and if he makes money, Minnesota, what the plan it sounds like is, can still play him. They can bump him into guard where he's less of a liability, and you can have Ezra play tackle.
Yeah.
If Ezra delivers right away, which they're hoping. And that's the best case scenario for them and for Ezra. And I think that's part of the reason why I like that fit, is because they can still use a guy and he won't be an albatross. Like they can still start Reif, but they would move him to a spot maybe where he's better fit right now.
Yeah. I think that, you're right. Like the value there, getting him at 58, I think was great. And one thing that I will say, Ron Slavin is Ezra Cleveland's agent. And if you look at the Boise State guys that have signed with Ron Slavin, they usually fare pretty well in the draft. Not a ton of his Boise State guys have slid super far. I mean, you look at Leighton. Leighton was a guy that when he got his initial draft grade was an other. So you get like round 2, round 3, or other, and he was slated outside as an other, and he goes in the 1st round. We just talked about Reese Odhiambo. Like he went earlier than most probably had him. Most, if not all. He's a Ron Slavin agent. So usually when he gets his hands on a Boise State guy, they do fare pretty well. So seeing the momentum that Ezra had, and a lot of people that seemingly are in the know or pegging him to go at the end of the first round. You just kind of had that feeling in your gut now, like, okay, it's happening again. He's going to go at the back end of the first round. But you're right. I think the value there at 58 is tremendous for Minnesota. I think you're looking at a guy like Ezra Cleveland that I'll predict now. He will be one of the more financially wealthy Boise State alumni in history by the time this is all said and done, and maybe the most given the position that he does play. If he stays
I mean, who's number one now? Clady?
Clady's probably Clady's got to be number one. Yep. But the price tag on tackles has gone up since he's been out of the game.
And also, injuries limited his career a little bit. If you project someone playing a little longer, but
I think that I really think that Ezra's going to be a very good NFL football player. You look at his athleticism, he moves, he is so nimble. I always go back to this, Dave. I wish that people, if I was his agent, I would have sent out video of him playing center field at the charity softball game last year because he did it with such fluidity. He didn't look like he was 6'6", 314 pounds out there in center field, by the way. And he even dove for a ball, and everybody's like, "Hey, Ezra, quit diving." But he is nimble and fluid for his size.
For what it's worth, we at The Athletic, we did podcasts on the top draft prospects.
Are you cheating on me?
Yeah, with the no, it was funny. We had to record little like 2-minute audio segments on guys, and for mine on Ezra, I did mention that he played center field in the charity softball game,
and it was like seriously impressive. Like I would have shown that tape to scouts drafting him because that was like the aha moment for me. I've seen him play football for years, but watching him play center field at that charity softball game, I was like, holy crap, this guy is different. Like he moves different.
But in that game, he hit like 4 balls out of the stadium.
Yes,
like
correct.
out of the stadium. That they have inner fences for this charity thing. He hit him out of the stadium.
Yeah.
The only other person I've seen do that is you. Remember when you did?
How about Hilton Richardson did it once.
Okay, yeah. No, but you did it with a baseball. Remember? I was throwing you BP. And
I give credit to the guy throwing me BP.
I grooved that one in there. Just
you did. It was a little high, a little inside. Just had to put a good swing on it, and it was
turned. But before we get to the other guys, what it was interesting with Ezra is Boise State's only had 2 offensive linemen ever go in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
And they were Ryan Clady and Darren College, who both logged more than 100 starts in the NFL. And there's a good precedent there.
That is good company to be. Like if you look at the wide receivers, any other position coming out of Boise State, there is not that almost, it's not guaranteed success, but proof of success like there is at the tackle position.
Mm-hmm.
You're exactly right. I mean, it almost says that he's going to be a $50-60 million man one day and do good things. And you also love where he's going too, in terms of, Minnesota's got a squad.
Mm-hmm.
Ezra could be in the playoffs next year. And another thing that's cool about that is that he's reunited with Alexander Madison, who was over the moon.
Yeah, he seems psyched.
I don't know if the kids are on TikTok these days, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
With TikTok, you know what that is?
No.
It has nothing to do with clocks for the most part. I kid, but either way, Alexander posted a TikTok, and it was him just like celebrating once they drafted Ezra, and caught up with him really quick. Just shot me a text message. It was super simple, but in short, Alexander's very excited that he's going to get a chance to pair up with Ezra once again, and Alexander can even show Ezra the ropes a little bit,
Yeah, and Dalvin Cook held up pretty well last year.
Yeah.
The thing that sucks for Madison is that he got dinged up at the same time. Mm-hmm. But you can definitely see Madison having a bigger role this year, and some familiarity with Ezra Cleveland can't hurt. Mm-hmm. But you mentioned what they got. The Vikings they drafted Jefferson in the first as a wide receiver, that they want to upgrade that offense a little bit, and I think that again that they have a good chance. I know some people aren't too optimistic about them this year, but I think they'll be a playoff team again.
Yeah, I think so. Especially you look at their division. If Chicago gets better quarterback play, they could be dangerous. Green Bay is. I don't know what Green Bay is necessarily doing. They drafted back to Aaron Rodgers, despite the fact that that Rodgers has 4 years left on his deal.
That's real quick. Yeah. It is a Mountain West. It's Mountain West related. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
I know. I hate to put it this way, but I know when sometimes Boise State fans see certain guys in college and their team does really well against them, that's the lens they view it through.
Yep.
They're like, oh, Jordan Love's not that good.
Justin Herbert sucks.
Right. I think Jordan Love is better than some people give him credit for, but I still don't know what the hell was going on, why they did that. I genuinely don't know, because Aaron Rodgers is the least likely guy, in my opinion, that would accept something like that.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
I
completely agree. And I don't know. It still feels. I was listening to something the other day that Aaron Rodgers has hinted at that he's not going to play forever or something like that. So maybe this, even though he's got 4 years on his deal, maybe the Packers are thinking they really only have 1 or 2 more years with him. I don't know, but he's similar in age as when the Packers drafted him to back up Brett Favre.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt like Favre was done. It doesn't necessarily feel like Aaron Rodgers has done. So just a little bit of a head-scratching move, especially when this draft was loaded at wide receiver.
Yeah.
They had a chance to get a really good wide receiver to help him out, and they went with a backup quarterback that might not see the field for more than a few seasons. So an interesting move, needless to say. But I definitely think that the Vikings, given their division, will make a legit run at the playoffs, and we'll see what happens there. But I like the situation that both Madison and now Ezra Cleveland and even maybe David Moe are in. But we'll get to the undrafted free agents a little bit later on, everybody. So
next do we hit the big one? Do we hit Weaver?
Yeah. We had to wait quite a bit longer than we all thought. I mean, I wasn't in the camp that was predicting him to go in the first round. I don't know who was at the end there, but it just didn't seem like that was it. But I will say this: I did think that he was going to be a day 2 guy and go somewhere, early round 3, and we had to wait quite a bit longer for Curtis Weaver to hear his name called day 5, and not like early day 5. You had to wait almost 2 rounds, 3 rounds, Dave.
No, day 3.
Did I say day 5? Sorry, day 3.
Round 5.
I don't know what day it is. We're all in quarantine.
It's okay.
Day 3 of the NFL draft, and you had to wait almost a round and a half, 2 rounds even on day 3 for Curtis Weaver to actually go.
Yeah, I kind of always thought he'd be a top 100 pick, right? That puts you close to the end of the third, right?
Well, just given his production, one thing that hasn't been mentioned throughout this whole thing either, Dave, Curtis Weaver is actually kind of young for his age too. I mean, he's only 21. Right?
And he turned 21, I think, on the first day of fall camp.
Okay.
It's like August 2nd, August 3rd.
Okay. But I mean, still a guy with his production, 4 years going into the NFL, 21, he's still relatively young. I mean, you still got time to develop this kid.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah.
Yeah. No, pick it up, Dave.
I agree. And I still – I don't know if there's been a clear answer on why he dropped. I don't know if you've seen something that maybe
I haven't.
To me, it seems like there was a lot of small factors that just added up. Whether it was not an impressive combine, maybe the interviews there weren't great, didn't get a chance to have a pro day, didn't have a chance to do private workouts.
Dave, I think you're hitting the nail on the head there with that last statement too. And I really do think that I went and kind of looked something up, and this might just be coincidental. There's no surefire stat you can look up and be like, yeah, that's the reason why. But if you mentioned the top 100 picks, this year there were only 12 non-Power 5 football players that went in the top 100 picks. And if you go back over the last few years, usually that number ranges anywhere from 18 to 22. So there was a significant drop in non-Power 5 draftees. And I think you're exactly right, Dave. I think that the cancellation of the top 30 workouts, the limited access to watch these guys and get to know them, I think it absolutely hurt some of these non-Power 5 guys, because if you're a scout or people making these picks, if you mess up and say, nah, we're taking in Curtis Weaver at 60 overall out of Boise State, I'm sorry, but if you do that and you miss, it's going to be noticeable. Where if
Right.
you say, no, we're taking a guy out of LSU at 60.
Yep. That's good. That's a good
Oh,
point.
LSU, he had a good season. Like, who would have known he wanted to panned out?
I'm not sure if many people have kind of hit on that. And I think when you were going into this draft, what people thought was going to happen was people they were familiar with, i.e., a lot of SEC guys, and of course they're great. I mean, I'm not denying that whatsoever.
Yeah, national television. Everybody gets to see him every afternoon during the Saturdays in the fall. Tons of teams.
Yeah, and then it was guys that went to the combine.
Yep.
And Ezra did great at the combine. Mm-hmm. Curtis Weaver didn't.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was, he still has to get better in the run game.
Curtis didn't do all of like the lifts and everything at the combine either.
Right.
There's a little red flag there that goes up and stuff like that. That you choose to not participate in that, and oftentimes it also can be a strategic move that guys will come back and do it at their pro day later on,
which was possibly the case here.
Yeah, exactly, but not the case.
Right, was going to be right.
Yeah, exactly. So I think there are definitely some factors that played into it. I mean, like, is Curtis Weaver the perfect player?
No,
obviously not. Like, I'm sorry, but like, obviously not. But one thing that I will say that like has been a little bit overlooked in this too, is that Curtis Weaver's teammates like adore him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, there are, right or wrong, there were dudes coming to bat for him on social media, and whether the statements they were attacking were right or wrong, they were still like, I mean, past guys, Brett Rippon, is on Twitter. I mean, so clearly Curtis Weaver's teammates, past, present, current, whatever, really, really adored him and what he brings to the table.
And it was interesting too. I don't know if I'm sure I'm part of the problem if people think that maybe he has like attitude concerns or whatever like that, right? Like, because he's the goofy guy and whatever. But every single one of his teammates will say that's what he is. Yes,
and David, it honestly, it comes up. It naturally comes up. I talked to when I was chatting with Ezra before the draft, I just said, hey, big moment for Curtis Weaver coming up. And by the way, Ezra raved about him, but like there was like a little thing like a subtle mention. And again, Ezra continued to rave about him, but somewhere in there he just brought up maturity, just like kind of naturally. And again, not knocking it, but he brought it up. You know what I mean? So just bringing it up, even reassuring that Ezra, loved him as a teammate. He should go early. He's the best pass rusher in the draft, and all these attributes. Like, you just think like, oh, he did feel like there needed to be reassurance there. So you wonder what that meant to NFL teams.
Right. They absolutely, they would. And and then there's just things that maybe weren't under his control. He had that injury against New Mexico, right? And I think he might have had one sack after that. One, he had one after that. The rest of the season.
Yeah.
And did that factor? Maybe. But also at the same time, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. If he could have played and didn't, then is that a red flag for teams like, oh, he won't play through injury? Plays through injury and he wasn't productive, then they're like, see, it's just it.
I think too. I mean, I agree with you there, Dave. And the one thing about Curtis Weaver's career is he had at least 9.5 sacks every one of his collegiate football seasons. I mean, it might not sound like a ton, but that is like unmatched consistency, especially like right now. Like, he was the only guy in this draft with 9.5 or more sacks in each of the last 3 seasons. But I will bring this up, and I bring it up because so many people pointed to this game as to why Leighton Vander Esch became a first-round draft pick, and it was the bowl game against Oregon. And Leighton looked like he was the best player on the field, and he dominated that game. 14 tackles, couple sacks. He was all over. He looked great. And you go back and look at the bowl game against Washington, and granted, that game didn't go right for any Boise State football player. But there was a little bit of anticipation going into that game. Like, if you show out like Leighton did, you like reassure your draft stock in your position of being an early draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. You bring up that he was banged up, but he didn't have that wow performance like Leighton did, where Leighton left the field that day, and you're like, man, he is absolutely an NFL football player.
You're not. NFL teams aren't going to be impressed by the fact that 7 of the 13.5 sacks you had on the year were against UNLV and Portland State.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm just intrigued how he fits in Miami because they were last in the NFL in sacks last year.
Yeah.
They had 23,
yeah.
and that was by far the worst. I know they tried to address it in free agency, but in the draft, they drafted a DT and a true DN. So I would imagine that Weaver has a shot, and if he's just gonna be a situational guy, that's fine. If you get someone at 164 and he can be a pass rusher and that's it, you probably can't be too mad.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I mean, as of right now, I can't envision him being a 3-down starter, but why not? Why not a guy who can be a really good pass rusher that you bring in passing situations?
I don't want to I'm not necessarily comparing him to Von Miller, but I just want to compare situation to Von Miller. When Von Miller came out of Texas A&M, was he viewed as he's viewed now, where an elite pass rusher that can also drop into coverage. I don't necessarily think he was a guy that is viewed as somebody that could be that versatile. I might be wrong. I don't recall that.
He was top 3 overall pick, but
he was. Oh, and so I agree. Again, I don't want to compare ability. I just want to compare situation. And you bring up the situation in South Beach, and Curtis is going to play in a 4-3 defense, which is way better than him being asked to play. I got that backwards.
3-4.
3-4 defense, and it's a better situation than asking him to be in a 4-3 defense and playing defense. And I think that him playing outside in a 3-4 is going to match his skill set much better, and maybe allow him to do what he does for the Miami Dolphins.
Right. Exactly. Yes. That's what's funny. Think about our good friend Shea McClellan when he was on the podcast before.
Yep.
That sometimes fit is really important.
Extremely important. And Dave, this is a great example because everybody thought when Shea came out, he'd be drafted to play outside backer in a 3-4 defense, and all of a sudden the Bears draft him to play defensive end in a 4-3 defense, and it was just
and then they want to play him in the middle and whatever. It's just
and then after that didn't work, they put him in the middle. Yeah, totally. It was just the middle linebacker. Again, we kind of look at this I'm really comparing. We're really comparing a lot of scenarios here, Dave. When guys go undrafted, Kellen Moore got drafted in the 7th round just to be drafted by some team. Who knows if he would have actually had the longevity that he had in the NFL to get pension. He found a path. He went undrafted, went to the Lions, then the Cowboys. And how that relates to Curtis is, what if somebody reached on Curtis a little bit earlier and wanted him to play somewhat out of position? And instead he slides a little bit and maybe goes to an ideal scenario. So it isn't quite doomsday, I don't think, for the guy. I think that even though he slid, he will go to a young team, by the way, that he might actually get a chance to show out. And his head coach has a linebacker background in Brian Flores. I like the fit there for Curtis.
Mm-hmm. No, and Flores came actually from a Patriots defense where Shea McClellan did well.
Yeah.
At the end of his career, and where he probably would have been off much better at the beginning. I'm not saying that they're the same people, but I'm just saying when we talk about fit, that's sometimes important. Sometimes you just can't fit a square peg in a round hole. Sometimes this is how it is.
And I think that the team that drafted Curtis wanted him to be a fit, and I think that was important, and I think that's what happened.
Same thing with Ezra Cleveland.
Yeah, same thing with Ezra Cleveland. Some feelings were hurt along the way, but you look at Pro Football Focus, and one thing I'll say is there's not always a bias in saying man, Curtis Weaver's sliding. I can't believe this. Pro Football Focus, I love to lean on stats, Dave, as you know. And Pro Football Focus, their grades had Curtis as a first-round pick. They place a value on win rate each and every play. And guys that played Curtis's position, Curtis was #1 in win rate across the NCAA by a pretty good margin.
Yep.
So there were a lot of things here that said, like, man, production, consistency, all this. Like, yeah, he should be an early round draft pick, but it just didn't add up that way. And one thing that I thought of earlier that I forgot to mention, Dave, and I should have looked this up before the podcast, and maybe I'll go and do that this week before our next podcast. How good were tackles in the Mountain West last year?
Huh.
You know, I don't know. Like, and I'm sorry to put you on the spot there.
If you take out Ezra Cleveland,
I don't know if you consider guys that Curtis Weaver was going against.
Not that great.
Maybe not that great. And
the strength of the Mountain West was the interior guys.
Yeah.
You know, Fresno State, Natane. You think about Laufenberg at Air Force, Boltshon. That there were some good inside guys, but yeah, the tackles out. I mean, Keith Ismail. Yeah, I can't think of anybody.
I should have looked it up, Dave, but I wonder if, like, how many tackles out of the Mountain West went. And so, you know, I'll say this: scouts, they're there all the time. They're at practice, they're at games. Sometimes they're incognito. Sometimes you can see them clearly.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a lot of eyes on Curtis Weaver throughout this last year. So you expect that their evaluation was accurate for them, and now he gets a chance to go prove himself. One thing I'll say though too is that, like, it's not the worst thing in the world. Like, now all of a sudden you don't have a third round, second round expectation on you. Now any good you do as a fifth round draft pick, you are exceeding expectations. The fifth round is like borderline whether you make that 53 man or not. If you
Jeremy McNichols didn't.
Exactly. The second, third round, like, if you miss on second, third round picks that don't make your roster, as a scout, you're probably going to be under scrutiny. But but the fifth round, it kind of hits that point where it's like, are they going to make the roster or not? So if you do, boom, good on you.
That's why I think them getting him at 164 is a total luxury. Where, if you, like I said, if you just get a guy who's a good pass rusher and that's it, that's what you're kind of looking for sometimes in the fifth round.
And I think that we've talked to people, and I don't mean agents, that can back up the fact that they truly do believe that Curtis Weaver is an elite pass rusher, and things that he can do are elite. Now we'll see how that translates to the NFL and if he can get after the quarterback. It's not all speed. It has to do with technique. It has to do with between the ears. And there are people out there that believe that Curtis Weaver is elite in those regards.
Mm-hmm.
So he slides. But then after all that waiting for Curtis Weaver's name to be called, we barely got done tweeting that he had been drafted. And all of a sudden, John Hightower gets picked up 168th overall in the fifth round, 4 slots after Curtis by the Philadelphia Eagles.
It's funny. I literally looked up at the TV after I was kind of going through my stuff and making sure, because I'd pre-written a story on on Weaver, just kind of like an intro to Dolphins fans. Like, here's who this guy is. By the time I sent it, I looked up and I was like, "Oh, Hightower just went," you know. Yeah. But that one too, like, there's been good Boise State wide receivers who have not really had an NFL shot. Mm-hmm. Not many were really made like John Hightower.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that is the Eagles 100% wanted to get faster.
Yeah.
On both sides of the ball. They drafted Davion Taylor from Colorado.
Who's that?
How dare you? Dude was a finalist in the Pac-12 in the 100 meters, and he's a linebacker. But they also, at wide receiver, they drafted Jalen Reagor from TCU. Uh-huh. They traded for Marquise Goodwin from the 49ers, and they drafted John Hightower. So he's part of a crew that is very fast.
It got to a point last year for the Eagles that, I mean, they were just
it was comical.
Receiver. They didn't have anybody. I mean, they're signing whoever they could to come back off of whatever. I mean, the Eagles turned to Jay Ajayi at running back for a little bit last year. I mean, it wasn't too long, but they were so banged up that they were doing whatever they could to try to find a playmaker. And so, like Curtis, I really like the fit for John Hightower, and Philly needs guys that can make plays at wide receiver. And John Hightower statistically was one of the more explosive wide receivers in college football last year. I mean, he was almost, whether he touched the ball, throwing it, passing it, rushing it, he was seriously almost a 20-yard gain every time he touched the ball. Like, on average, but like almost guaranteed to gain 20 yards in some way, shape, or form.
He averaged what, almost 40 yards when it was a touchdown.
Yeah, exactly.
And 11 of his TDs went for more than 40. So.
Yep. Yeah, and that's what they need. So
I think
I really like that fit for him.
Me too. And my initial reaction was, I was like, ooh, they traded for a wide receiver. They signed, they drafted one early, and then they got him. And I'm like, ooh, that might be tough for him. And I think in the immediate, like right away, maybe he doesn't get a ton of time. But if you think about it, you can learn from some of those guys, learn from your Jeffries and guys like that. They're kind of older, right? Deshaun Jackson, same thing, right? He's there too. That's another fast guy. And
I love that comparison, by the way, Dave. And I was actually thinking about this, and I forgot to tweet it out. Who did Eric Keesaw, the position coach of John Hightower the last couple of years, and now the offensive coordinator at Boise State, compare John Hightower to at the beginning of the season? He brought
Deshaun
Jackson, yes. And so I do think that's an awesome fit. And now maybe Deshaun helps tutor Hightower a little bit, with their connection being Eric Keesaw.
Yeah, I think so. And that's the thing, is like, maybe he won't be super involved in 2020, but I think that if you know about John's background and his history, he's still pretty raw. So I think no matter where he went, he might need that. And he has a good core there. And whether the quarterback in the future is going to be Carson Wentz or Jalen Hurts, he can build a rapport with those guys. He can learn from those vets. The more I thought about it, the better fit I thought it was. Because at first I just thought, oh, that's great for him. But then I was kind of like, how's he going to break that lineup? But I'm like, well, he doesn't have to immediately.
Yeah. We caught up with him not long after the draft, too. And he told us that Carson Wentz immediately texted him, and which that's probably protocol.
Sure.
Every quarterback.
I don't know if Aaron Rodgers texted Jordan Love.
Did he?
I don't know.
Oh.
I think he said he talked to him maybe the next day.
I think I saw an interview saying that too.
I think so.
It's not. It shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, Carson texted John Hightower.
Right.
Cool little nugget to at least acknowledge, and it probably is, like I said, protocol for those guys. But man, there are worse quarterbacks that you could be connected to than a guy like Carson Wentz, who is young, talented. Jalen Hurts also texted John Hightower after the pick, and I just think it's. I've said it before. I think it's a good fit. I think you're right. John Hightower's a little raw. I think that people think that the ceiling on John Hightower is much higher than currently viewed. And if you get him in the right system, the right situation where maybe he can marinate for a little bit and then become a big-time player, that he might become a big-time player. And another thing for John, Dave, I know that you've written about this too, but John Hightower wasn't the most vocal guy I would ever say. I think his teammates really liked him, but he never was this really vocal guy. But if you watch the way he played, I really do think that there was plenty of pride in the way that he played. And some people say that it might be selfish to point to the back of his jersey after each touchdown, but his last name means something to him, and his family means something to him, and so he would do that. But he also has a tattoo on his arm, "Long Live Slim." What I'm getting at, Dave, is that he's going to be much closer to his family for the first time in a long time. He played JUCO ball down in Mississippi. He's been playing out here in Boise for the last couple of years. And so now he's going to be a little bit closer to his home in Maryland, a little family in Maryland. Mm-hmm. And they're going to be able to come over to Philly and watch him play games. And I know that's something that will be really motivating and mean something to John Hightower.
And you and I both did stories on it. And his Marcel Preston, his friend, died. It was almost exactly a year ago now. It was Easter weekend last year. And the way that John said to both of us how that shaped him was in multiple ways, but part of it was the maturity angle. Yeah. And you remember he got suspended for the bowl game. That didn't happen. Mm-hmm. But I always thought, I never saw him as that sort of guy, so I was a little surprised. But last season, everybody talked about how mature and dedicated he was. Harsin was raving about it. And you see how John's carried himself since he got drafted. There's a humbleness to him that really stood out to me. And I think that like when you mentioned he points to the last name on the back, I don't think that's a look at me thing. You know what I mean? Look, he's got his grandma, you know what I mean? Obviously the family means something to him, So I don't know. I think
he is playing for more than himself.
I think he's well equipped he's well equipped to make the most of the opportunity. Because I mean, if he looks back to 3 years ago,
Yeah.
he was catching 14 balls at a JUCO.
College, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. Can you hear Collins, by the way, in the background?
I very briefly saw Camille walk by with her.
Yeah, she's getting a little diaper change.
Didn't really hear it.
That work from home life, it's honestly like the best. It's awesome. I love it. I am ready to go back to work whenever we're allowed.
I've been spoiled because for the most part I usually did work at home, but at least I would go to Boise State for things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I worked from home, but also at the same time I would also go places.
Yeah.
So the last thing is recently was Josh Booker Brown is a transfer portal for Boise State. Yep. And I'm just wondering from your perspective how big of an effect that is.
I don't think it, like last year, they needed him more last year than they do this year.
Yeah.
I think if Ezekiel Elliott gets back and he's healthy, Benton, if he rebuilds his arm that lost quite a bit of strength after surgery, that Twitter or that picture he posted on Twitter is hilarious.
That thing was crazy.
Yeah, Riley Wimpy. Like, I think they honestly needed Josh Booker Brown more last year than they do this year, and I think they're going to be okay at linebacker. Like, it would have been nice.
Yeah, I thought
it also wasn't. It clearly wasn't a fit.
I thought about it too because, like, again, one of those like first reaction things. When I first saw it, I was like, "Ooh," because I know they really liked him.
Yeah, same deal. Yep, I agree.
He was Defensive Scout Team Player of the Year last year. If he had been academically eligible, they would have used him. I wouldn't have been surprised if he ended up getting some of the starts that Benton did.
Yeah.
But now, if you look at it, you go, well, they have Zeke Noah probably coming back healthy. They have Benton, who got 10 starts last year. Brock Miller can play in the middle if they need.
Yep.
Bruno DeRose got some time there.
Yeah.
At first I was surprised when I saw it, to be honest. And then I thought about it more, and I thought he would have factored in, but maybe at best he would have been the starter.
Yeah.
Well, no, he probably wouldn't be the starter next year either.
Yeah. I mean, if they lose somebody on the defensive line, somebody in the secondary, I mean, like,
yeah.
As odd as it sounds, a number of other positions would have concerned me more than losing a linebacker. And, like, while they don't have a Leighton Vander Esch out there, I think that they have a lot of trust out there right now in the guys that they'll run out there. And granted, if somebody goes down, situation looks a lot different. But as it stands right now, the guys they expect to get back, I actually think they're stacking up okay at linebacker. And I really want to see what Zeke Noah can do if he can stay healthy and be full force. He could be a really special player too.
Absolutely, and that's it's to me. It's sometimes hard to really gauge sometimes the success of a linebacker crew, especially after you lost Leighton Vander Esch. I mean, to be honest, like, he was such a playmaker that I know there's been some people that have been really critical linebacker group, and I get why, just because it's not flashy, but also that D line was so good last year against the run that sometimes I don't know if that if linebackers struggled or not. So I think this year is going to be a really good tell of where they're at, considering that a lot of those D-line guys are gone.
Yeah, you bring up Leighton, and it just kind of triggered something that I saw over the weekend. And I'm a big Logan Wilson fan. Sorry, Bronco fans out there. Like, I think that Wyoming linebacker, I think he's outstanding, personable, clearly a great leader. Somebody said, like, he plays like Leighton Vander Esch. He's in a variety of Leighton Vander Esch. I'm like, productive, good leader, totally. But, man, few dudes look like Leighton Vander Esch for that length and size out there. And Logan Wilson isn't, 6'4", 6'5", whatever it is, with Leighton's wingspan.
Which is hilarious.
Player, not Leighton Vander Esch.
Which is hilarious because some of the, like, when they did draft grades, they're like, he plays better than the guys that are 230, 240. Like, well, why the hell are you comparing to Leighton Vander Esch, who was that size?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I agree, though. I actually do like – I like Logan Wilson a lot.
I do. He's a great – I really enjoyed talking to him Mountain West Media Days last year. He's a guy that – I mean, I guess I will say this. Like, if you want to compare his story, like, not a lot of interest out of college, turned himself into a guy that was an all Mountain West caliber defensive player. I get that. But, like,
in-state from a –
different.
from a hard scrabble state. He's an in-state guy.
Yeah.
And the fan base loves him because he's from there and stuff like that. Because they call him the governor there.
Yep. Yeah.
And I get it. I like, hey, and if he ends up being, well, still stories to be told on Leighton because he's only played a year and a half. But if he's that for the Bengals, awesome.
Yeah.
He's different than Vontaze Burfict.
Yeah. Well, the Bengals have actually had success. They drafted Fackrell out of Utah State, so I mean they've had some success with Mountain West.
And one of the vigils was there too.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, you're right. Yep. Yeah, I can't remember which one, but
I was confused too.
I'm thinking of. I can't remember. I don't know. They've had success with one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
I always just do kind of scoff at some of the comparisons though, and there was one the other day talking about John Hightower and going up to get the deep ball. Like, I'll admit, maybe John Hightower could be like stronger, sure, whatever. Everybody could be stronger, but I never really like remember like looking at his game and being like, damn, he's just weak and not being able to snatch the ball from defenders. I mean, like there was a catch at Wyoming, there was a catch in the Mountain West Conference Championship game. John Hightower is pretty good at going up and high pointing the ball, and hell, most of the time he was already by the defender, didn't have to high point the ball.
Well, one of the interesting things about him, I'm glad you mentioned that. Do you remember what he weighed during this? Like at least what he was listed at, and what he weighed at the combine?
Yeah,
he was 170,
185 or something at the combine or something.
172 during the season.
Yeah,
and he was 189 at the combine.
189. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you want him playing too much bigger than that. And the fact that he was able to put on that weight, I think is a positive, and still ran a good 40 time.
And he still threw down a 4.440. Yep. Yeah.
I think if there are concerns about him being able to, out muscle guys, at least so far he's shown a commitment that he can put on weight.
Totally. And that seems like a good chunk of weight, not a huge amount of time. Ezra Cleveland's talking about like strength wise, he's pretty similar, and weight wise, he's pretty similar, but he's stripped off like 6% body fat. And you kind of like wonder, like, well, why didn't those guys do that at Boise State? These guys just like enter a different world, Dave, as you know.
It is.
For the NFL draft. I mean, like every meal is prepared for not everyone, but they're told what they're putting in their body and all that stuff, and they know the value of it all at this point in time. And it was so funny. Dave, I don't know, like in all like the lead up to the draft interviews, I don't know if I've ever had anybody just like straight up say it like this, but Ezra was like, Ron Slavens, he's paying for us to eat this way and work out this way. So why do we do it?
Yeah. They like, I remember who else was there with Slavin? I mean, Weaver was. Mm-hmm. I think Denzel Mims, Lynch, the kid from Baylor that Minnesota took that I like a lot. But yeah, I mean that's all they're doing. Yeah, it's not like they also got to take class and stuff like that. That's all they're doing.
All they're doing.
And I had heard, but about Curtis Weaver improving that facet. But truth be told, when he weighed in at the combine in late February, he was 18% body fat, and our guy from the Athletic said the average like all pro edge rusher has 12%.
Yeah.
And some people said that might have been a knock. His was second highest of the edge and DN guys.
It is what it is. You can look at that and say, like, man, we got some room to grow this guy. We could develop him. But I'll say this, like, from the is what it is category, like, size-wise, he's very comparable to DeMarcus Lawrence and Jadeveon Clowney, who are all pro defensive ends. Those guys look different.
They do. Yes, they do. So, they 100% look different. Like DeMarcus was something else. I mean, the biggest guy I've seen maybe pound for pound is still Tyrone Crawford.
Yeah.
Just because he's got like huge mitts and stuff like that, but DeMarcus looks different.
Yeah. Well, time will tell, Dave, if it's a good value pick or if there was reason that he slipped in the draft. One other thing to add is that John Molchon's going to get a shot with the Tampa Bay Bucks, and David Moe is going to get a shot with the Minnesota Vikings, both as undrafted free agents. And that's pretty much all I've heard of. It's kind of unfortunate that all these rookie mini camps are being canceled, because I thought that there are more Boise State players that should at least get like that type of invite.
Yeah, the tryouts.
It's lean this year. It's just leaner. I'm surprised. Chase Atada, should have gotten some type of rookie minicamp invite. But last we heard, he hasn't had one.
Right. Yeah, and there's there's definitely a handful of guys out there like that could have had at least the tryout invites, but I mean, like Moa's got a decent shot, but I like Molchan's chances in Tampa. I really do.
Molchan's chances because of his versatility.
Mm-hmm.
Versatility.
That's number one. Yep.
Yeah, it's a very good at that position. It's a very good thing to have.
It's hilarious because he played every position at Boise State, and like last season started 3 of them, and he in the NFL his spot might be center, where the only one he didn't.
Hey, Dave, did you? Okay, you're right. He has. But one other thing, when talking with John, did you know that he had a pet snake?
No, I don't think so.
I can't remember its name off the top of my head, but he said it's the best college pet you can have because they're easy to take care of, and it's an automatic conversation starter of why you have a pet snake. Never knew. He told me he had a pet snake. Was
he the guy that would walk around campus with it?
Maybe, I don't know.
Those were the weird guys.
Offensive linemen are weirdos.
I swear it was like maybe Doug Martin had something like that when he was younger.
Huh.
I think so. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if he fed him hamsters or not.
Yeah. Oh, hey, he probably would. Hamster name.
Exactly.
Eat that, snake. Dave, it's been fun, man.
It's been great.
Been going over for a little over an hour now. To all of our listeners, few of you, all of you, whatever we got right now, I hope you enjoyed this because it's good to be back talking sports, and I think we'll make this as regular as we can moving forward so that we can provide you guys a little bit of an escape, some entertainment, and it seems like we're getting a little bit closer to maybe getting sports in our lives again, and we'll just cross our fingers and hope that COVID-19 allows that because we miss it.
Figured everybody would we gave them enough time to get to know their families better. And now that things are starting to maybe resemble normalcy, here we are back again.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Dave, it's been fun, bud. I'm sure I'll see you again or talk to you throughout the rest of the week. But as for our listeners, we'll see you next week here on Jay and Dave's Sports Bar, serving the Idaho sports community.